is Ashley Hill. I am your college success coach, and today I have a very exciting show. We're going to be talking about why low literacy levels can actually cost parents, can cost you a lot of money. And it's true, and I'm going to get into that topic. But first, I want to welcome you and introduce myself real quickly here. I'm so passionate about working with our college-bound students and families to get them ready for college. And I'm so passionate because, I was fortunate enough to be a part of college prep programs, and I was able to successfully get into Kent State University, where I completed my undergraduate degree in biology, and I finished in 3 years with the strategies that I use myself and that I use with my clients. So, the focus of this show, College Prep Radio, really is to prepare you parents, to give you resources, and for those of you, I encourage you to have your teams listen in as well, because I give tips that they can use as well. So with that said, I invite you to call in if you have questions at area code 347-857-4638. Again, that's 347-857-4638. Before I go any further, I just want to say my thoughts and prayers with those in the path of the Hurricane Sandy. Fortunately, I'm not in that pathway, but my heart goes out to those who are without power and their necessities. So I'm praying for you guys out there. Now, parents, in case you didn't know, this is National Book Month. And that's really exciting for me. I love to read. My parents really instilled that in me, the love for reading. And so this month I really want to encourage you, particularly with this show, parents, on how to encourage your teens to read and why literacy levels and reading abilities among teenagers are so important. And, again, I want to talk about how you can help your teens to have sufficient reading abilities, and that can actually, parents, help save you money in the long run. So I decided to do the show today because I read a really shocking statistic recently, and that was that 75% of our U.S. 8th graders read below their grade level. So that means that they're not even reading up to the par, to the level where they should be, and most likely they're not going to catch up by the time that they're leaving high school. And it's very shocking because, you think from 8th grade to 12th grade, that's 5 years or so. Until they're out of school, and if they're not able to catch up at that point, that can not only affect them in their adulthood, just with, being able to read a check or to read a stop sign or to read an application or something, but obviously that's going to have a huge consequence when they get to college. And so, parents, I'm telling you this because, you can be proactive, and on this show you're going to hear me say thousands of times it's better to be proactive than reactive. And so I'm pushing you today and encouraging you that you can't sit idle while your students are struggling. And if you do know that, or your students are complaining, or better yet, their grades are showing so, reflecting that they are having struggles, parents, that you have to take action and that you have to, to step in and pull in resources and do what you have to do to help your teens to raise their reading levels. And so I'm going to show you how to do that today. And again, parents, I invite you to invite other fellow parents that you know in your community, have your teams to sit down and listen to this as well. So I want to get into just talking about literacy generally for a moment. Reading affects writing. And that's the first big concept I want to talk about is typically if you think about all the great writers in our time, in our world, they had to have started out, I can guarantee you, they had to learn how to become good readers because your ability to read affects your ability to write. If you're a great reader, it's a higher chance that you're going to be a great writer. If you're not such, if you don't read on the level that you should, it's going to show up in your writing. And I think, from what I've seen with my clients and just through my own research, I really think it's important that as parents, tip number one is encourage your child to read a variety of genres, fiction, nonfiction, thrillers, sci-fi, fantasy, romance. Just get them involved, inspirational, religious, self-help if need be, history. But get them involved in reading different genres because they need to be exposed to different writing styles. That their own ideas can be expanded, their insights, their perspective, their view of the world can be further expanded, and that's going to really help them write because as they observe the different literary styles and different use of language and verb, subject agreements and the different pronouns and the different lengths and syntax. Within the reading, they're going to be able to reflect that and get a chance to use that in their own writing and expand their abilities to write. And so that's why parents strongly encourage you encourage your teens to read and read in different genres. Also, I want to point out some activities, parents, that you can encourage your teens as well. Encourage them to write a book. From the age of 9, I was telling my mom, I want to write a book. And you know what? I did that this year, finally, 16 years later. I finally got a chance to write that book, and I'm telling you the experience. I like to think I was a really good writer, but, the experience of writing and publishing your own book, it really expanded my writing skills, my styles. It really pushed me beyond my limits, and I'm so appreciative of that because I get a chance to use those new writing skills every day. I wrote the book sharing about my experiences in college. It's called Celebrating the Journey, Rediscovering Me. And then in that book I share about my experiences, and, once I got to college I kind of had some bumps in the road, parents, and I'm very transparent in this book, and I share because I don't want other young adults, going into the college environment to stumble in the same ways that I did. And so I encourage you to go to Amazon and get that. But, your team, they don't have to publish the book, but you can encourage them to, to write their thoughts down. Typically we see on TV and in the media, mostly see females writing in diaries and in journals. But I encourage parents, with guys, with your male kids, encourage them as well to journal their thoughts down. I still do that today, and I look back, over some of my journals, and I'm just so inspired and I'm encouraged, when I'm having a bad day, to keep going. And it also expands my skills, Also to blog. Technology is huge now. And parents, I encourage your teens to start a blog. They can go on blogger.com or use the free WordPress site, and they can start their own blog. That can really expand their skills as well. Also, parents, encourage your teens to join the newspaper club. I was in the newspaper class when I was in high school, and it was very interesting. I wanted to be an entertainment writer, but I ended up writing in a sports section. And I love sports. I have two brothers, and I love sports, but that really pushed me because I was used to only writing in a certain way, but I was challenged, and I really enjoyed that experience. So I definitely encourage you parents to push your kids in that direction. Also, in the college prep light, parents, I encourage you to have your teens to practice writing prompts well before the applications are due. I'm talking about middle schoolers, parents. You can have your seventh graders even writing different prompts, such as why do I want to go to college? Why am I pursuing a certain career? They can go online and get the various prompts that colleges provide, they require, and they can practice them now. They can practice, on their grammar, on their word usage, make sure that it's clear and concise and that they're explaining themselves appropriately. So they can practice that now. But also, parents, I think it's important to get into, parents, you have to model for your kids, and you're going to hear me say this a lot on this show as well, and I really believe it. Is that, parents, you're your child's first teacher. If your child never sees you reading, if your child never sees you writing or engaging in such activities, they're not going to be encouraged to write nor advance their reading skills themselves. If all you do, or if the majority of your time is spent in front of the TV, parents, you can make a change. Decide this week. Say, hey, next week we're going to cut down the number of hours we're watching TV. We're going to go to the library. Or we're going to go online and find books to read, and they don't have to be, 1776, 500 pages long books, but parents, they can be appropriate. There are a lot of authors out here who write for young adults, appropriate books for young adults, and parents, I encourage you to, encourage your teens to go online and look up those books. If you have a Kindle or, a device like that, you can, download it directly from Amazon or what have you. Or, like I said, you can go to a library. You can swap with other teens in the community. You can talk with other parents. Obviously, your teens can get books from their library at the school. So, parents, I really encourage you to really be a model for your teens. It's very important. So just kind of want to recap very quickly. Reading affects your writing, and actually I can tell you I've seen clients, when they first started, I look at a writing sample and I can tell, you know what, you need to read more. And that's not meant to how do I phrase this? That's not really meant to down anyone. It's just that we all can improve, and you have to think about it. When you're applying to college and you have to write your college admissions essay, you have to think who's on the other side, who's going to be reading that. They're looking for polished students who can write effectively, defend an argument, or explain something effectively with the right verbs, the right grammar, the right tense, the right syntax, make sure it's concise, but yet explains all the details, it's organized. They're looking for this, parents. So, it behooves you, parents, to encourage your teens, and you can explain to them, this show will be recorded, let them listen to this, that it does affect your admissions getting into college. If that admissions person is not, if they're not clear that you're able to write and read, at least on an incoming freshman level, there's a higher chance that they could pass over, your college application, and you don't want that. So parents, this is very important. Now, I want to get into how this can cost you money, parents. So let's put out a scenario here. Your student graduates, they get into a college. In case you did not know, almost all colleges, at least in the U.S., require students to take a placement exam. That's a math and an English placement exam to see which math and English courses that your child needs to start in for their degree. Now, depending on the range, the score, if your team does not score high enough for the English or the math placement test, they can be put in a remedial English class. So that's basically a high school level class. They can be put into a remedial class. Now, you have to still pay for that class, parents, if you're, helping pay for your child's tuition. However, that class, the credit, does not go towards your child's degree, your child completing their degree. They don't get the credit. The credit doesn't count towards completing the degree. And parents, you've just spent out thousands of dollars for 1 or 2 English classes that your child actually took in high school, but they didn't score high enough, so they have to take it again. Number one, it costs money in the regards of you have to pay for a class that is not going towards degree completion, parents. Number two, that's wasting time because you have to spend that time you could be taking the appropriate classes. Now you're going to be in college longer, so you're going to be paying more tuition. The cost of food, the cost of books, all of that factors in, parents. That can end up costing you thousands of dollars if your teams do not pass, if they do not score high enough on these placement exams. That's why it is imperative, parents. It is vital that you are encouraging your students to read and develop their reading skills now, and that they become great writers as well. Now, parents, I do want to mention this. For those of you that have your teens who are struggling, you need to figure out what is the core of the struggle, what's the foundation. Is it reading comprehension? Perhaps there's maybe they're dyslexic. So you have to get at the core of what the true issue is, and that comes from being plugged in. You have to be plugged in, be involved with your team, involved with their academics, stay on top of what they're doing, talk to their teachers, and you're going to find out what's really going on. You may find out you may just need a tutor, or maybe your teens are just too overloaded with activities. Maybe they need to scale back and spend more time studying. Maybe they need to develop better study skills. It could be a range of issues. And so I'm going to take a moment right now and, again, invite you to call in, area code 347-857-4638. Again, that's 347-857-4638. But, yes, so parents, you definitely want, and also to model. I just mentioned a little bit a moment ago, let your team see you writing and reading. And not only writing and reading, parents, but developing your skills. You can do that online. But you can challenge yourself, to read something that you perhaps didn't think you could ever finish, or, a book or blog, or write your own book. I encourage everyone to write a book. I think it's very freeing and satisfying. So, with all of that said, I want to get more into the placement exam. Specifically, they focus on English usage, sentence correction, and reading comprehension. And so with that, they're going to provide or present scenarios to your teams, and they're going to have to select the right words, correct incorrect sentences, and also they're going to have to comprehend reading a passage and answering questions about that. And so with that said, parents, since those are the three major areas of the test, I encourage you to push your students to excel in those areas. Again, I'll say them again. That's English usage, that's sentence correction, and reading comprehension. And that includes, subject-verb agreement. Can they identify if a verb is used in the wrong tense? It's very, very important because parents, as you know, college, you are writing quite a bit. Even if your major is fashion, there are still classes required that you will have to write. And college professors will expect you to be at a college level. That's what you're expected to be. And parents, for your teams to successfully finish and get their degree, they're going to have to show their professors that they can write and read and converse on a college level. It's just the way that it is. But, parents, also use your child's teachers as resources, your child's English teachers. Use those as resources. Check in with your school, with your teen school, see if they have additional resources, tutors there on hand. Don't do this alone. There are I know there are other community organizations there more than happy to help your teens as well. So, don't get discouraged, don't get dismayed, but seek out the resources and bring them in for your team. And parents, sometimes you have to put your foot down, and I think one issue now with this current generation is technology. We're texting, constantly emailing. A lot of it is shortcuts. And teens have to understand that's appropriate in, social situations. But you have to be careful that you're not translating that to your college admissions, essays, even writing, even doing a homework assignment in high school and middle school. You have to be very careful to know when to use shortcut language and when not to use it. So parents, that's another way that you can encourage your teens, because you'd be shocked. When I was in college, I used to work with the admissions staff, and they would tell me how students would write in shortcut language on their admissions essays and not get in and wonder why. But what happens, and that's because we have to continue to educate. And like I'm sharing with you parents, you have to share this with your teens and keep telling them and keep telling them and keep telling them. But with that said, I do, thank you, parents, for listening, those who are listening in, and those who are going to listen into the recording. Share with me on Facebook. I'm on, I have my own page. It's Prep, the number 4 college. Share in the comments there any other ideas that you're using, parents. Also on Twitter, Prep, the word for FOR college. Share with me on Twitter, any ideas that you have for other parents to use. Also, you can email me at info@collegeprepready.com. Also, parents, I do have a resource, for those of you who, you're right now in the college prep process, and, your teams need help with putting their essays together and their applications together. I do have my new program for them. It's a 6-month program. It's called Student Executive Academy. I encourage you to go to my website, www.collegeprepready.com, to check that out. Right there on the home page, and it's a 6-month program. And parents who get your teams together, it's a comprehensive program. It includes my one-on-one coaching with them. We get them ready, we get them set to go to college, and we help them to beat out the competition. Because parents, there are millions, and literally millions, of applicants applying to college, and you want your teams to get into the college of their choice, the best fit college for them. And all this starts with that application, and that includes they have to know how to, read and write at the appropriate level. And so parents, with that said, I do understand that it is Halloween today, and a lot of you are, preparing to go out. So we're going to keep our show short today, but feel free or be sure to join me next week to have a special guest, and we're going to get all that information out. Her name is Ms. Sherry Jefferson, and we're going to be talking about parental involvement and why that's so key in education. So, again, thank you guys for listening in, and we'll talk to you next week.